Middle of the country, but not middle of the road opinions. It's the podcast dedicated to sports in the air capital of the world.
I'm going to Wichita.
Wichita, Kansas, and beyond. With Tommy Castor and Weston Mills, this is Keeper of the Games.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Keeper of the Games. We are the podcast all about sports in the air capital of Wichita, Kansas, and beyond. I'm Tommy Castor, along with the one and only, the legendary Blake Cripps, back on Keeper of the Games today. And Blake, I have to tell you that as happy as I am to see your face for this episode of Keeper of the Games, I just have to say it. I have to be honest. I have to speak my truth. Okay. You're no Jeff Goodman.
No, if I'm a legend, I remember the first job that I had in Fairbury, Nebraska, and I'm there at the station for like 2 seconds. Like, hey, we need you to play this third tier level Harlem Globetrotters team for a benefit at the basketball gym at the high school to raise money for Fairbury athletics, and we wanted to send you, as a local celebrity. And I'm like, the idea of me as a celebrity is laughable at best and pathetic at worst. Like, what are you talking about? I've been in this market for like 2 seconds. And so the legendary, I don't know what you had to drink before the show today, but I appreciate your dishonesty.
Oh, absolutely. We're glad that you could join us here on this.
Is the baby
edition.
Here? Is that
yeah.
official now?
Yeah, so I was just about to get to that. So obviously, okay. Blake is joining us here on Keeper of the Games. Weston Mills is not with us today because he's got a brand new baby girl. Their baby, awesome. I believe her name is Parker, was born on Thursday, I think afternoon or Thursday evening. So mom and baby are doing quite well, perfectly healthy and happy. I talked to Weston a little bit earlier on Tuesday, and I think other than being sleep deprived, obviously very happy. So no ETA on when Weston will return to the program, but obviously he's got bigger priorities right now than doing this show. So Blake, again, happy to have you here on the show.
What could be bigger than this show? I don't understand that train of thought. I don't get that.
Well, I can think of probably about 40,000 things that are a little bit more.
Maybe 50,000.
Yeah, maybe
okay.
So. And I want to remind you to hit subscribe. That way, anytime we have a brand new episode of Keeper of the Games, you'll get a notification. That's the best way to know when we have new episodes dropping. Perfect example of that is last week we had a bonus episode that dropped out of the blue. And so the best way to know when we have a new episode is to hit subscribe. Wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you can find us on platforms like iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, all the major platforms out there. You can also go to our brand new website, cogsports.com. That's KOGsports.com. Listen to archived episodes there. You can watch our YouTube videos and a whole lot more. And of course, you can watch full episodes on YouTube and Facebook by searching for Keeper of the Games. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CogPod. That's at KOGPod. Let's get right into the show with our top story. It's been our top story for the last week or so since we've kind of known what's been going on in the world of Wichita State University basketball. We're going to follow up on this episode and talk more about the Gregg Marshall situation at Wichita State University. Blake, I don't know if you had the opportunity to listen to our most recent episode, our bonus episode that dropped on, I believe it dropped on Thursday afternoon, where I actually sat down with Jeff Goodman from Stadium as he talked about the investigation into Gregg Marshall at Wichita State University. That happened on Thursday. Folks, if you've not listened to that interview, I would highly suggest you go back and listen to our previous episode where we dive into that. It's a great interview with Jeff, but then also some new developments in the last couple of days. In fact, a brand new development that happened just a few hours ago, a new article from The Athletic followed up by the Wichita Eagle about how allegedly this behavior from Gregg Marshall did not start at Wichita State, and it predated all the way back to his time at Winthrop University. So, Blake, I'm not sure how much you had an opportunity to dive into any of this in the last few days or so, but anything new stand out to you from what we know now?
Well, I've read, just for full context, I have read the entire Wichita State article. I do have it up in front of me to refer to, and I did read the entire athletic article. So
Okay.
I'm very familiar. The Wichita Eagle article actually dropped as we recorded this. This would be yesterday for the people who are listening to the podcast, and it's not good. I mean, it's not good. You know, the individual allegations they're just that. They're just allegations. And so, yeah, he was mean to players, the fact that he was mean to players, boo-hoo. That's not as big of a deal to me. The bigger deal is the fact that this is demonstrated at more than one place. So that all of a sudden, you already have your opinion, no matter who you are, about whether or not this is a big deal, whether him saying these things to the Wichita State players, the Winthrop players, is bad enough to be fired. I'm not here to change your mind one way or the other of that for you, the listener. You've already decided this is bad enough that he's going to get fired, or this is not that bad. It's not that big a deal. These kids should just grow up. But the fact that there is now another report that this happened for years at a different stop, is concerning for a couple of reasons. First of all, if it's happened more at Winthrop and we didn't know about it, could there be something else that is unknown that has not been reported yet? Because this is not something that we really dived into a lot when we talked about this a week ago. So it's not inconceivable that there could be more. And if there is more, obviously that would make it harder to keep Gregg Marshall. And secondly, the more talk that there is about this, there have been a lot of people who have said, and appropriately so, very defensive of Gregg Marshall. He's done a lot of good things in this community. He's done a lot of charitable work in this community, and said, we need to let the process play out. We need to let the allegations come to light. But if there's more allegations, if there's more coming to light, at some point, something will have to be done. A decision is going to have to be made. And it really puts the athletic department, the last point I will make is it really puts the athletic department in a much more difficult situation, because as this drags out, this is not necessarily a part of what Wichita State is investigating. I don't think Wichita State really, certainly due diligence is a part of any investigation, but I don't know that necessarily what happened at Winthrop is within the scope of what the lawyers at the St. Louis law firm are doing. But the decisions that the athletic department are going to make almost have to be somewhat informed by what did happen at Winthrop, even though it doesn't have anything to do with Wichita State. The narrative is going to continue going a certain way. The optics are going to continue going a certain way. And it makes the prospect of deciding to keep Gregg Marshall, even with all the wins, even with all the positive things he's done for Wichita, it's going to make it more and more difficult to sell to the patrons of Wichita State and the faculty who have already started asking questions about, why this has been allowed to go on so long, especially as close as we are to the season, less than a month away for the MIAA and D2 schools. I don't know if they've actually decided when the Division I schools are going to start yet. I think after November 25th. This puts all the players at Wichita State, the staff, sports information, media relations, everybody, and I feel really most badly for the players of Wichita State, puts them in a really difficult situation where you don't know if you're going to have your head coach the month before the season starts. It made what I thought was a really difficult situation last week even more challenging for Wichita State this week.
So Gregg Marshall released a statement in response to the allegations on Tuesday at Winthrop University. And for our listeners who have not yet read this article or have not heard about it, I want to read this statement from Gregg Marshall. And this is, and I quote, "As I have stated previously, I am deeply committed to my players and the teams we have built together. I believe unequivocally in their value as athletes, as students, and as people. Any portrayal of me to the contrary is wrong. Throughout my career as a coach, I have devoted myself to empowering my players to achieve their greatest potential. That's the legacy I have built throughout my career, both at Wichita State and at Winthrop University. My 9 years at Winthrop saw the Eagles achieve greater success than ever before. Not only did our players win on the court, but our team graduated all but one senior student athlete during my tenure. I am extremely proud of what we built together at Winthrop and will always reflect fondly on my years there. So that's the quote from Gregg Marshall that he released in response to the allegations about Winthrop University on Tuesday. Look, I've been attacked several different times based on my takes about this situation, some of which, okay, I can understand where people are coming from because they're passionate about their coach, they're passionate about their program. A lot of it has been kind of what you just said, Blake. It's let the process play out. Let's not rush to judgment. Let's not jump to conclusions. I alluded to that in my interview with Jeff Goodman, that I actually had a back and forth with Mark Adams from ESPN on Twitter a few days ago, who I felt like he was one of those let's not rush to judgment kind of deals. But all I'm doing is I'm looking at the body of work here. I'm looking at the overall collective of all of these allegations. I said this a week ago on this program to both you and to Weston. I said, look, I'm not at all suggesting that every single allegation is accurate in exactly the way it was portrayed. I don't think that, I mean, you can't be 100% correct all the time, right? But again, I'll say it what I said, a week ago, where there's smoke, there's fire. And obviously, this is something that, now the whole scope of this whole thing has broadened out as far as its locations and as far as the time period that we're looking at. What I find really interesting, going back to the statement that Gregg Marshall made on Tuesday about his time at Winthrop, is there was really no specific denial of any specific allegation. Kind of the same way when he released his original statement about Wichita State. He did say that, he believes in the value of athletes and whatever, but he never refutes anything in there. All he does is kind of deflect away and say, we won a lot. We won a lot of games, and I graduated pretty much everybody, but he never specifically refuted anything.
I will say, for the Wichita State, he did say he has not struck a player.
But that was the second. That was the second statement he released. He didn't do it. He didn't do it the first time. He did it the second time. Which, again, whatever. Timing, it is what it is. But that to me is concerning. To me, that shows almost not an acceptance, but a justification. Like, look, like I think his original statement about Wichita State was, look, I'm an intense coach and my players value that, whatever. Like, it was a justification of the actions. It was not a denial or refuting of anything.
Yeah. The biggest problem that I think Shockers will have with your position is the fact that there have been so many players that have come out in support of Marshall, like Jamie Eshanike, who is alleged to have had, semi-racist things said about him. He has come out in support of Gregg Marshall. You've got Nick Wiggins, who has come out and said, Gregg Marshall's never been racist. We haven't heard that much from the big names like Ron Baker and Fred VanVleet. They have not said much about
Not a word. They've not said a word.
Cleanthony Early had that really cryptic tweet about, what's chaotic to the spider or the fly is normal to the spider, and that kind of thing, which I'll let you read into that, whatever you want to read into that. But for someone who is interested in keeping Gregg Marshall around, which I think you can agree would be literally everyone with a brain who has watched Wichita State basketball because of the success that he's had. There are a lot of things that they can point to, a lot of witnesses that they can point to who will say, oh, Gregg is a nice guy. Gregg doesn't do this kind of stuff. The challenge that the athletic department will have, obviously, is they can't just look at that. They have to look at everything. They have to look at the integrity of the university. They have to look at the integrity of their recruiting process, about doing what's right by the student athletes that they have had, the ones that they currently have on the roster, and of course the ones that they're going to get in the future. And that's a difficult balancing act for the athletic department and for the athletic director, Darren Boatwright.
Yeah, I want to take a moment here while we're discussing this. And, I actually had quite a bit of reaction from people that I either know or people that I don't even know based on the interview on Thursday with Jeff Goodman from Stadium, who broke the initial story. And, it's kind of interesting. My motivation to bringing Jeff Goodman on the podcast, first off, I'm going to be totally honest and just kind of blunt about this. The fact that he did our little rinky dink podcast blows my mind. I certainly that
was a great get for you guys, by the way. Getting somebody of his caliber on,
right?
He's a national writer. That was a great get for the podcast.
Yeah, I certainly did not expect that. One bit. But my motivation in getting him on was simply the fact that he had done media in Wichita. He had done interviews on radio. He had done interviews on television. And I thought, well, hell, if he's going to do that, maybe he'll do us. And he did. And, but
yeah, he talked to Shane Ewing on Facebook for, God, I think I didn't watch the whole thing, but, and it's, by the way, hey, hats off to you, Shaner. That was a great get for you too. Yeah. I don't know if it was part of Cake, but it was like at least 15 or 30 minutes. So,
yeah.
It's not like you were handpicking him to come here and nobody else. Everybody in Wichita wanted to talk to him. So,
right. But it was
an appropriate interview to have.
Yeah. I had reactions from people that, I had people that made comments to me about my lack of challenging him on anything, the questioning where it seemed like to them that I was alongside him the entire time, sort of shepherding him along, where it wasn't a situation where I was, like I said, challenging him in any particular way. It was kind of like letting him tell his story in a long form way that maybe he hadn't gotten from other outlets in Wichita. And I thought about that, and I went back and I listened to the interview a couple different times. And I'm not going to deny that one bit. I'm not going to deny that I didn't really challenge him on any of his points. But the more I listened to it, the more I was okay with it, because I realized that the other media appearances that Jeff Goodman made in Wichita, I felt like was challenged quite a bit. And so I felt like in that regard that it was more than appropriate for me to sort of just let him tell his story in a long form way on this podcast. So I've been accused of being a part of this crusade to get Gregg Marshall fired. That's not my goal. I don't have a crusade in this at all, other than I want the truth to come out. This is a black eye on the city. It's a black eye on the program, the university, fans. It's a black eye on just Wichita in general. I want the truth to come out. I said it on this podcast a week ago that as far as my personal feelings, I'm not a huge fan of Gregg Marshall. I haven't been. I've had negative interactions with him, but that's certainly not leading me on a crusade to get the guy fired. It just is a situation where I want it to be balanced in the city, I guess, as far as the coverage of this. If I have a crusade about anything, I guess I have a crusade about just the lack of balanced coverage on this in the market. And so I guess that's where my crusade comes from. I'm rambling on this. The bottom line is that the sort of reaction I got from people on both sides of it shows me that this is an incredibly contentious and really disheartening situation. So regardless of what ends up coming out of it, it's just a bummer of a situation altogether. If you're in the city, it sucks.
Yeah, it absolutely sucks. And listen, I know what this is like. Going back again to Mark Mangino at Kansas, believe me, I did not want Mark Mangino fired at KU for 1 second. Not 1 second did I want him fired. And I don't want Gregg Marshall fired here at all. Obviously, I hope that the stuff that he did is not true. And, I don't know if I really understood being a student at KU at the time. Is it possible? Am I allowed to maybe looking through hindsight with 2020 glasses, admit that maybe I wasn't the most journalistically, even though I have the Bachelor of Science in Journalism plaque right here. You can't see it on camera. Maybe I wasn't totally impartial about that situation at Kansas. I think that maybe that's accurate. But I understand why Wichita State fans don't want him to go. This is the best era in the history of Wichita State basketball, and I'm certainly not here to make the decision for the Wichita State athletic department. But I do know that the longer this goes on and the closer it gets to the season, the more difficult of a situation it is going to get. Like I said, I would never tell Wichita State what they have to do in this situation, but it does seem, I'm just guessing here, doesn't it seem like they kind of have to make a decision, whatever they decide, if they're going to keep him or if they're going to fire him? I mean, doesn't it feel like it's got to be like November 1st? I'll be surprised if it's not done by November 1st.
I'll tell you,
sooner.
When Goodman was on this program last week, I asked him about the timeline, and his response was, when does this podcast drop? It could happen as soon as then. That was last week. And still, this is kind of dragging out. This seems to me that this goes a lot deeper than just Gregg Marshall. I think that if Darren Boatwright had full control of the situation, I think Gregg Marshall would be suspended. It leads me to believe that maybe Darren Boatwright doesn't have complete control of the situation. I'm not necessarily faulting him. I'm just saying that maybe there are other people at play that are the ones that are going to be making the call on what's going on.
I'll just say that based on what I've seen thus far, that's a very large claim that I don't see evidence.
I'm just saying that could be a potential. I'm just saying that could be a reason why nothing decisively has happened up to this point.
I just want to make it clear, my opinion. Sure. I don't have any reason to believe that Darren Boatwright is not in 100% control of the athletic department. And for me personally, I don't think that there's anybody that I would rather have if I was a Shocker fan. And I am a Shocker fan. There's nobody I would rather have running my athletic department through this difficult time than Darren Boatwright. Darren Boatwright was there through a tough time when Gene Stevenson was fired. He was there when they had to deal with the Jody Adams situation. Now, I know he was not the number one guy at that time, but I know that they didn't just, make that decision without consulting him. He was very high up in the athletic department. So for me, I believe he is going to do the correct thing for Wichita State. I believe that he will do whatever is best for the school and whatever is best for the university and the city. I have full faith, 100% confidence. I may not have 100% confidence that Gregg Marshall didn't do some of the stuff that is alleged. I don't have 100% confidence. I think if you have 100% confidence, there's an awful lot of people who have given eyewitness reports. I mean, do you really not believe Shaq Morris and all these guys at Winthrop and all these former Shockers? I don't have 100% confidence he did nothing, but I do have 100% confidence that Darren Boatwright is going to make the correct decision for Wichita State 100%, and that he is in control of this department 100% and will do the right thing for WSU. I am 100% confident in that.
And I want to make it clear, I don't want to put you in a bad position. I don't want it to seem like
we're not talking for each other. You're talking for you.
I'm talking for me. You're talking for you.
That's totally fine.
And I don't want it to be a situation where I'm calling people out and then you're associated with that.
No,
and I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable either. I will say,
no, you need to take whatever your opinion is. You don't hold back because or Weston's on the show. It's your opinion and you'll own it. And that's what makes you a good host on this show. And that's fine. I'm happy to be on the show, and my opinion's mine and your opinion's yours. So whatever you have to say, you say it, and you don't worry about me.
So at the end of the day, I think what would make me feel a little bit better about all of this, and again, I want to close, and I don't want to make this about me at all. I don't want to make this about
and
how people have been responding to me, or like it's not. I don't want to turn this into me. But what would make me feel a little bit better about this whole thing, as far as the process and the way that the community has approached it. There are people in this market, and you know what? I'm at the point now, I'm going to drop them by name. Where are they? I would love to hear from Mike Kennedy. Where's Mike Kennedy? I'd love to hear from Bob Lutz. Where's Bob Lutz? I'd love to hear from Shane Dennis. Where's Shane Dennis? Where are these influential voices in the city? Where are they? Now, I'm not asking them to come out and condemn Gregg Marshall. I'm not asking for them to come out and throw him under the bus. I'm just asking for them to come out and talk about it, to start the dialogue, to start the conversation. Where are these people? And I guess Mike, if I have a crusade in any of this, it's not about Gregg Marshall should be fired or not be fired. It's not that Darren Boatwright should be fired or not be fired. It's where's the coverage? Where is it? It's nowhere to be found, in my opinion.
So let me just interject and say, if you have a sports talk show, obviously, and I've listened to some of them, and they have, I've heard it on in the morning, I've heard it in the afternoon. Obviously, if you are ignoring this story, I mean, that's insanity. This is one of the bigger sports stories that Wichita State has had this.
You don't have to ignore to downplay.
No, I'm not trying to get into the level at which the radio stations are downplaying it or not, but I mean, they should be all I'm trying to say is they should be talking about it. If I might interject in terms of Mike Kennedy, I can say 100% if something like this were to happen at Newman with one of our coaches, whether it be, Coach Allen on the men's side or Coach Spence on the women's side, I can guarantee you that I would not be saying anything. And I think that if this happened with Les Miles at KU, I don't think Brian would be saying anything. I don't remember hearing Brian Haney talk about all of the, Bill Self with the Adidas deals and all that stuff that was alleged. I don't think that it's Mike Kennedy's place to talk about this. He has built a relationship with a coach that is built on trust and mutual respect. And I think speaking out of turn like that, I don't think is the voice of the program, even though, obviously anytime that Mike Kennedy talks, I want to listen to him about Wichita sports because he's a great talker and such a fantastic personality, but he is an ambassador for the school. And so I think him going on his own with his own message, whether or not it is approved by the school or by Gregg or by himself or whatever, I don't know is necessarily being the voice of a program myself and kind of being in that industry. And that's what I want to do. I mean, I would love to be Mike Kennedy or Brian Haney or Wyatt Thompson. I mean, that's my life goal, is to do that job one day. And I'm thankful to be the voice at Newman University. But I don't think it is that person's job to comment on these issues. They are representative of the school. And after the school makes a decision, I think that, he'll have something to say as they preview the season. If they change coaches or if they keep coaches, he can kind of talk about that in terms of how it's affecting the team. But as of right now, about how it's being handled, I don't think that that's Mike's job. I don't think he should get into that. And I think that it's appropriate that he has not. The sports radio stuff, if you're on a sports talk show, I mean, CBS Sports Radio is talking about it. ESPN Radio is talking about it. All these national places are talking about it. And if you're on a Wichita sports show, you have to talk about it. I've been on that side of it too. You have to talk about this story, whether it's good or bad, and you have to be honest. But for Mike Kennedy as the voice to come out and say something, I don't think that's something that he ought to be doing, and I agree with him not saying anything.
I do want to give kudos to the Wichita Eagle. I feel like they kind of got a little bit of a slow start to this a little bit. I think this was really led by national reporting for quite a while. But in the last several days or so, I got to give a tip of the cap to Taylor Eldridge and Chance Swaim. They've written some really hard-hitting articles, including a follow-up about, that came out on Tuesday about the Winthrop University allegations, kind of piggybacking off of what The Athletic released, but they had some exclusive interviews in there as well. So hats off to them. I just want coverage. I want balanced coverage. I don't want the person who led the investigation to be villainized in the city. I don't want him to be celebrated in the city either. I want balance,
right,
all the way around. I want balance in the coverage. That's all I'm after. And I think that's still a work in progress here in the city.
It's tough. And this has happened to every school.
It's not hard.
I mean,
it's not easy.
Let's think about Kansas State. Kansas State had that huge finance scandal.
Yeah.
Kansas State fans don't want to hear about that. You and I are both KU alums. We don't want to hear about the Adidas paying players. We don't want our school to be involved with that. And I know Shocker fans didn't want to be involved with the Jody Adams thing when she got suspended for, disciplining players to, making them run at halftime of a game. And they certainly don't want to be involved with this. And, the newspaper has got to be, I have a Bachelor of Science in journalism. I believe in journalism. And I believe, Maya was always told that the purpose of journalism is to figure out whose story is not being told and tell it. And, you can't, anybody who has criticism of Taylor Eldridge, get out. I don't want to hear from you. I really don't want to hear from you. This is his job. It doesn't mean he hates Wichita State or hates Gregg Marshall. These local guys at the local paper, it's their job to cover these stories, whether it's KU, Kansas State, Wichita State, or your local high school. They have to cover them with it's good, and they cover them when it's bad. So if you have a problem with Taylor Eldridge, my opinion to you is to just leave me alone and let me never hear from you again. This is his job. You don't sign up to only cover. If you want to only cover the good stories, then you work in sports information. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. Tammy Cutler at Wichita State, phenomenal job. Love Tammy Cutler. She does a fantastic job. But if you are in the media and it's journalism, then you have to cover everything. And that's what Taylor Eldridge is doing. And, I think his stories have been balanced. They have been fair. He has reported the facts that have been reported to him with citing sources, so I don't want to hear about criticism of Taylor Eldridge. That's ridiculous.
No, I agree with you. I think that he's done a really good job up to this point.
Yeah.
I'll close with this, and we've gone back and forth on it quite a bit, but I'll close with this. I 1000% agree with everything that you just said about journalism. My degree is not in journalism; it's in communications, but I took a lot of journalism classes in college. I 1000% agree with your take on that. I don't agree with local media, regardless of the platform. I don't agree with local media kowtowing to whether it's a coach, a program, a university, a corporation, a business, a company, whatever. That's not the purpose of free and balanced journalism. You're supposed to be an independent watchdog, an independent party, reporting on the positives and the negatives and telling the story of those who are not being heard. Exactly what you just said. I don't think we're there quite yet with every platform in the city with this specific story. That's all I'll say.
But yeah, and not that we're claiming to be reporters, because I don't think what we're doing is reporting. But I mean, I do think that we do owe it to the audience to be honest. And if like I was always taught in play-by-play, like people will find out if you're a homer. When you listen to a Newman game on the Newman Jets audio network, you better know immediately who I want. If you don't know who I want to win, then I'm doing a terrible job at doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You had better know within the first 5 minutes that I want Newman to win every game. But if at the same time, if Newman, if all the calls are bad against Newman and Newman, is just getting screwed out of everything, people are going to know that they can't trust what I say. Yeah. And at least when I'm on this show, and I know you and Weston feel the same way, there are no Skip Baylesses on this show. Right. We don't contrive our opinions to drive ratings. That's not that we would get ratings, but we don't contrive opinions.
We go from 12 listens to 13.
Yeah. We don't contrive opinions to either make people happy or piss people off. Yeah. You are getting the honest reaction from Tommy. Obviously, Tommy is upset about it. I am not, I am more laid back about it, but still, concerned about things. And this is how I actually feel. This is how Tommy actually feels. We're not saying this to make people mad or to make you happy. This is our opinion, and that's, as a podcaster, that's what or on the radio, that's what you have to do. It's what you should do. And if you're not, you're just being dishonest with your audience. And I'm not going to do that. I didn't do it on sports radio. I'm not going to do a guest filling here for Weston on this show.
Right. And we certainly didn't, I think to your point, it wasn't a situation where, prior to recording, I said, okay, my opinion is going to be this and your opinion is going to be like, that's not the way that
we're not nearly that well organized.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say is that what you were just talking about as far as, calling a game, being the voice, without getting too far off the rails. That's why I think Joe Buck is so universally hated. And I think he's brilliant because he's not a homer for anybody. Generally speaking, that's not his job. And so anybody tuning in, they're going to be a fan of one of the teams and they're going to be pissed off that Joe Buck is not sucking up to that particular team. That's not what he does. And so I really actually like Joe Buck a lot because he knows his role and he plays to it very, very well. So I think that's just kind of a side note that I have.
You have to know what people are supposed to do. Mike Kennedy is supposed to represent the university. Yep. The people in the sports information department of Wichita State are supposed to represent the university. It's not their job to report on what's happening.
Yep.
Taylor Eldridge does not represent the university. It is his job to report on what's happening, even if he doesn't want to.
And, I just want to clarify, in case anybody hears this and, you're texting Bob Lutz or Shane Dennis, or I have nothing against those guys at all. I like Shane Dennis quite a bit. I've spent some time with Shane before. I like them. I want balanced coverage, and maybe they're doing that and I just missed it.
I will say I've heard on Bob's show. I listened today. They did talk about it, and when it first came out with Bruce and Shane in the morning, they did discuss it. Now, I can't say that I listen every single day to those shows. Have they covered it enough? I would not even be willing to conjecture an opinion on whether or not they covered it enough. I'm just stating for the record that I have heard them discuss and acknowledge the situation and discuss it and give their opinion on it. So that's all I wanted to point out there. I don't have a relationship. I don't think Bob would know me from, Blake, anybody named Blake. He wouldn't know me from Blake Lively, so
everybody would know you from Blake Lively.
Everybody would know Blake Lively from me, not the other way around. And Shane, I haven't talked to Shane for years. I had him on my show. He was great guest when I was on. He was doing he was the director of operations for the baseball team, had him on KGSO, but I don't have a relationship with either one of those guys. So, I just wanted to state for the record that I have heard them talk about it. That's all. I think we can move on. Yeah, there you go. And again, we might be beating a dead horse with this topic. I don't feel like we are. I mean, I feel like it's relevant information. And if there wasn't something new that had literally broken a couple of hours before we came on the air, I don't know if it would necessarily be our top story, but it is, I feel like, a responsibility for a Wichita sports podcast to talk about. No, it broke today. It's fair of us to talk about the story. And if you have any complaints about the rundown, at Tweets from Tommy on Twitter is where you should send. At Tweets from Tommy on Twitter. Believe me, I've already gotten several of them, and a majority of them come from Mark Adams at ESPN. Fair enough. So we'll move on from there. And again, who knows? We could have a decision in the next few hours, days, weeks. We have no idea. Obviously, we'll keep you posted as we know. Okay. Enough about Gregg Marshall for today. Let's get into our next topic, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs on a weird edition of Monday afternoon football. On Monday, the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills by a score of, I believe it was 23-17. Is that correct? 26-17. 26. They had that late field goal from Butker. They did kick that field goal. 26-17 to win by 9 against the Buffalo Bills in the rain in Orchard Park. And Blake, what I thought was just really telling about this win is that the Chiefs continue to find different ways to win football games. That's been the big narrative about this Monday afternoon football game against the Bills, was the fact that the Chiefs really employed the ground and pound in this game against Buffalo, putting up the most rushing attempts and yards in the Andy Reid era to win that game. You have to imagine some of that had to do with the weather conditions outside, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire was
absolutely phenomenal. And he wasn't the only one. Darrell Williams ran the ball great, had a touchdown. Darwin Thompson even had some good runs as well during that game. It's just one of those things where, you always think about, you hear this phrase quite a bit in football, like, you never know what you're going to get with this team. And that's usually meant in kind of a positive and negative connotation. Like sometimes they play good, sometimes they play bad. You could say the same thing about the Chiefs, but not in a negative way. You never know what you're going to get as far as the way they win football games. Will Patrick Mahomes throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns? Will they run for 3 touchdowns and 250 yards on the ground? Will the defense come in and win the game for them? I think it just shows absolutely how versatile this team can be.
Well, the biggest takeaway that I had from the game, and which I did not watch, I was at work, listened to the entire thing. Sometimes I like to do that because I get to hear the opinions of Mitch and Kendall Gammon. This year it's Dan and Hughes on the Chiefs radio network, and I kind of get their insight, which you get a Chiefs perspective on. Obviously, when you're watching the game, although it's fun to hear. I think wasn't it Jim and Tony that were calling the game? I think it was.
No, it was Joe. It was actually Joe Buck and Troy Aikman.
Oh, so that's right. It was a Fox game. Yeah, it was a weird AFC only Fox game, which that's kind of weird. But I like to get the Chiefs' perspective on things because the Chiefs radio broadcast is focused on the Chiefs. So I got to listen, and the one thing that they really drove home to me is how much better the offensive line played. You heard play after play of how these holes were opening up in the rushing game. And I did watch the Oakland Raiders game, and the Chiefs got absolutely whipped up front by Las Vegas. Las Vegas owned the line of scrimmage. That was not the case against the Bills. Chiefs played much, much better in the trenches, played much, much better defensively against what I thought was a superior quarterback in Jeff Allen.
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. Maybe my opinion that maybe the Raiders are actually fairly decent last week. It's hard to figure out. This Chiefs team really held Josh Allen in check, really held Lamar Jackson in check. Derek Carr goes for 40 points and has a career game. I come away with this having more respect for the Raiders, no less respect for the Bills, and it really makes me interested to see how they're going to piece together Mr. Le'Veon Bell, which is also something we can talk about. That happened since the last podcast, joining the Chiefs, yet another addition to this running game. And it's so refreshing to listen and hear that Patrick Mahomes doesn't have to make every stinking play in order for the offense to work, that you can actually have somebody run the football and pick up a first down. And listen, Patrick Mahomes had big throws down the seam, found Kelsey for like a 32-yarder to set up that last field goal. Patrick Mahomes did his job. Only threw for 225 yards, but terrible conditions. Still threw for 2 touchdowns. It was great to see other parts of the offense step up, and it doesn't have to all be about Patrick Mahomes. Credit to the offensive line, which was playing a little bit injured with some guys. Obviously, they've been without the doctor all year, but playing with some guys injured as well. Offensive line dominated this game against Buffalo, and they deserve credit, and the defense played much better. Anytime you hold Josh Allen to 14 of 27, that's barely above 50%. Only 122 yards, 2 touchdowns, and I know the late pick doesn't really count, but I mean, there was at one point where they had under 25 yards late in the game. They had nothing in the second half. 25 total yards in the second half. So, Kansas City defensively and on the offensive line absolutely showed up huge in this game, 5-1. And Mitch said on the broadcast, he said, I don't want to make too much out of a mid-October game, but man, when you think about the playoff implications of this game and the fact that Kansas City and Buffalo will not play again this year, this was a really big win for Kansas City to come back after the Raiders, get to 5-1, and moving forward right now for Kansas City. that's a really, really, really big win for the Chiefs.
Yeah, of course, with the playoff picture, Kansas City's playing for that number one seed. It's less about the division title and more about the number one seed.
And they got the tiebreaker now on the Ravens and the Bills.
Exactly. That's huge because you have to imagine that those two teams are going to be fairly high up there as far as the AFC playoff seeding is concerned. So absolutely a big win.
Why do I keep sinking, by the way? I keep sinking. It's bothering the hell out of me. My chair keeps sinking. Sorry. Those of you on the audio will not have any idea what I'm talking about. The video looks terrible. God bless America.
Well,
Sorry,
let's be honest. It doesn't usually look good anyway.
Not when I'm on the show.
So offensive line, absolutely the MVP. I mean, I echo your sentiments there. And that was a concern coming into the game. Austin Ryder didn't start. Daniel Kilgore did on the offensive line for Kansas City. So Andy Reid made a change there. And then, like you mentioned, there were some injuries. Mitchell Schwartz went out with the back injury, but a couple guys really stepped up to open up those big holes for the running backs for Kansas City. Mike Rimmers, Nick Allegretti, they both had great games up front. And those are guys that I'm not sure a lot of people really are familiar with, but they had a great game up front for Kansas City.
Allegretti and Kilgore got a ton of love on the radio broad. Dayton Hughes and Mitch could not say enough good things about those two guys specifically and the job they did in run blocking.
You mentioned the Chiefs' defensive success with quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I would even throw Cam Newton in there. I know they didn't play Cam because he was sick with COVID, but the fact that you kind of have these quarterbacks that they've had success with here early on in the season. I think you're seeing quarterbacks that are a little bit more mobile that defensively Kansas City is having more success on, but more of the traditional straight drop back passers like a Derek Carr. That's really going to expose the secondary a little bit for Kansas City. And that was one area that I don't want to say was an overall negative because there were some good plays, but I do think the Chiefs cornerbacks struggled a little bit. Rashad Breeland had a couple of big penalties on him. He had a hard time,
there were a lot of penalties.
Yeah. Charvarius Ward had a hard time covering Stephon Diggs during this game. And so, I think that when you have just a straight drop back passer like a Derek Carr, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the secondary. When the quarterback is more mobile and they're running out of the pocket, that opens up, your linebackers and, your front four to be able to try to, contain him in the pocket a little bit more. And I think that's why you saw the Chiefs defense having more success when Josh Allen ran the ball or when, Lamar Jackson was running the ball. So I think that might be a piece of it there. But overwhelmingly, the biggest thing that I think about is that you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire that was running the football like a guy that doesn't want Le'Veon Bell to come in and take snaps away from him. I mean, he ran the ball so well. And you just think if you add in Le'Veon Bell and the kind of change of pace back that he can be for Kansas City, I think a lot of people forget Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't think was really ever meant to be a full 3-down back for Kansas City, right? I mean, I think he was meant to be, to come in and he was going to share snaps with Damian Williams to start the season before, Damian opted out, for the season due to COVID.
Oh, so I'm sure that Williams would have been the number one guy in my mind.
Right.
And they would have changed pace. And, that's something that they mentioned in post game, I believe, that, the offensive mind and the general manager, they still had the idea, we want to mix in the run with multiple running backs. And he said, they probably still do. And it kind of hedges your bets against injury because if you have a Le'Veon Bell and he's your only guy and he goes down, you don't often have, unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs, who seems to just, pull running backs out of thin air every single year, typically there is a drop-off and a dramatic drop-off to the next running back. Now, I don't know if that's Andy Reid or a tremendous general managing scouting department, or maybe Eric Bieniemy is the best play caller in the history of football.
It's all the above. It's all of the above.
Having Patrick Mahomes, I have to say, probably helps the run game. I'm not an expert, but I have to believe that that's probably the case. And the fact that the Chiefs have so many weapons on the outside probably helps the run game. The offensive line has something to do with it too. It'll be interesting to see what the rotation is like between Edwards-Helaire, because I'm sure if you're Edwards-Helaire, you're like, give me the ball 15 times. Give me the ball 20 more times. Let me be the guy. And the other thing too is now that they have that, What happens when Williams comes back next year? I know this is like way longer out than the scope of this conversation needs to be, but that's the scariest backfield maybe in Chiefs history with those three guys at the same time. Wow.
Yeah. I think that, I've talked to a couple different people that I know that actually the conversation started because they've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire on their fantasy team, and they've been like, "Man, Le'Veon Bell coming in. What is that going to do to CEH as far as his fantasy value?" And I actually think this is going to give him more opportunities to be successful because you get to use Clyde in the way that he was intended to be used at the beginning of the season as, in tandem with another running back. At the beginning, it was Damian Williams. Now it's going to be Le'Veon Bell. And so I think that helps out quite a bit as far as his opportunities. He doesn't have to be a workhorse. He doesn't have to get worn down by the end of the season. I think it helps keep him fresh for sure. All that being said, are you a fan of the Le'Veon Bell signing? I know a lot of people love his talent, don't necessarily always love his attitude in the past that he brings with him. Are you a fan of this signing for Kansas City?
Well, I think for me, I'm always going to be okay with adding another quality running back like Le'Veon Bell just because of the injury situation. With the injuries that can happen, it's always better to have more great running backs. And you have to remember, there have been times where, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has not necessarily been explosive. The Buffalo game was the only game this season, I believe, that he's averaged over 4 yards a carry, maybe 4.2. He averaged 4 yards a carry against, here it is, the Raiders, 4 against New England. We do some research on this show. He hasn't exactly
a little bit, a tiny bit,
just been unbelievable. 6.2 against the Bills. So it's not like he's just been absolutely blowing up. He has no rushing touchdowns this year. So for me, it's not as if he has been coming in, averaging 5 yards per carry the whole way, scoring all these rushing touchdowns. I'm not saying he's not helping the team the other ways because he is a reliable pass catcher and he does stretch the defense in different ways. He's had 2 games, I think, that have had an average of over 10 to 12 yards per reception. He averaged 13 against the Vegas and 5 for 70 against Baltimore. Even though he's not scoring, he's helping the Chiefs score. And so I think that he's going to continue to be out there when the Chiefs have the ball on offense at any part of the field, no matter whether whether Le'Veon Bell is part of the package or not. And maybe there's going to be some packages. I mean, far be it from me to suggest to Eric Bieniemy what he should do, but what about having a package where they're both out there? I mean, I think that there are things that they could do with both of them on jet sweeps and having one be a decoy for the other. So I don't think that this will necessarily, as you said, I don't really care about fantasy. Are his rushes going to go down? Yeah, probably. Are his touches going to go down? Probably, but in terms of wins, I don't think that it's going to hurt Kansas City to have Bell out there to be able to rotate in. So for me, if you can get a good player at the price that they got Bell at, which was basically chump change, just for half a season, just do that signing. I have full confidence in Darren Boatwright at Wichita State. I have overwhelming confidence in Andy Reid to control the culture in Kansas City, no matter who comes in. He made Terrell Owens not just manageable in Philly, he made him look almost docile in Philadelphia. Terrell Owens, okay, got him to come in and play with a broken ankle and almost win him a freaking Super Bowl. Terrell Owens, one of the biggest divas whiners in the history of professional sports. So if he could deal with T.O., whatever. If he could deal with T.O., Le'Veon Bell will be no challenge at all for Mr. Andy Reid.
So Kansas City gets through their pretty brutal 4-game stretch with the Ravens, Patriots, Raiders, and Bills going 3-1. Their lone loss, obviously coming at home against the Raiders. Their schedule gets a little bit easier before their bye week. Of course, their next game is Sunday afternoon. Actually, a lot easier the next 3 weeks before their bye.
The Jets.
Yeah, they're on the road going to Denver to take on the Broncos on Sunday afternoon. The Broncos, they did just win. They beat the Patriots in probably the most boring game.
Anything now?
Yeah, the most boring game I've ever watched. They beat the Patriots 18-12 over the weekend. Then from there, the Chiefs are back at home against the Jets, and then they take on the Panthers at home as well before they go on their bye week in the middle of November.
Yeah, Jets are 0-5 and got they got shut out by the Dolphins last week.
Yeah,
Man,
I think that
terrible.
That Jets game is going to be one, Blake, where I think you probably don't even need to dress Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Just let Le'Veon Bell go. Just let him go up against the Jets, and he'll run for 400 yards and 8 touchdowns against them because I'm sure he's got so much venom against his former team and Adam Gase.
And then the Panthers, and I mean, do we think that McCaffrey going to be back? No. I know he got hurt pretty seriously.
Yeah, doubt it.
They were thinking that he might be done for the year. I don't follow the Panthers at all, but do we really feel like the Panthers are going to be the team without McCaffrey that's going to stretch the Chiefs? I don't think that at all.
For sure. So that's their upcoming schedule. Of course, we'll talk more about the recap from the Broncos game and look ahead to the Jets game next week on Keeper of the Games. Let's get into some college football action. And of course, if a bad season could get any worse for the Jayhawks, it certainly has on the football field, as Pooka Williams has opted out of the rest of the 2020 season, citing family and health reasons. So Williams is a junior. He's been the Jayhawks leader in all-purpose yards in each of his 3 seasons on campus. Blake, is there any chance we ever see Pooka Williams in a Jayhawks jersey ever again?
No, and I don't believe him for 1 second that he's, family and health, and the most important things need to be with his mother. Not that he doesn't love his mother, but that's why he left. Please. You know why he left? Because KU stinks at football. Why would you want to play here? They've got the new rules. He gets to keep his eligibility. He's going to go somewhere else and play for a not crappy offensive line with a team that will actually give him the football, and he's probably going to run for about 5,000 yards, and we're going to say, wow, geez, if only we had people at KU who could coach, maybe we could have watched this. Why would you want to stay? Why would you stay in Lawrence if you had a rule that was on the books that let you leave? Why would you want to stay? KU's horrible. I don't believe that he's doing this for health or his mom. And by the way, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for doing this. Pooka, God bless you. You actually made me feel like I was watching a real football team at certain different times while I was watching KU. When I really wasn't. I was just watching you because you're the only good player that we have. So thank you for suffering through 2.5 terrible seasons where KU won, 6 games while he was here. How do you have a talent like Pooka Williams and you win 6 games? 6 games with the best running back in the Big 12. What a joke. So I don't blame him at all. I don't believe him, and I don't blame him. Get out and save yourself and get some – feel like what it's like to win in college for a change. Get with a real program that's actually going to give you a chance to get better film and get to the league. When he gets to the league, and I think he will, do you think that there's any chance he's going to say, when Sunday Night Football comes on and here's the starting lineup for the San Francisco 49ers, Pooka Williams, Kansas? No chance. Whoever he signs with next, even if it's Missouri Science and Technology, that is who he will say as his team on NBC Sunday Night Football. We have wasted Pooka Williams, whatever. We wasted Pooka Williams, and it kind of makes me sick. We did not deserve, the fans deserved him. Fans love Pooka. I think he said that as well. KU did not deserve Pooka Williams. The fact that we got him was a fluke, and we're not going to see another guy like Pooka Williams barring some demonstrative change in Lawrence. No, it couldn't get any worse.
We're kind of doing this as KU fans this year, looking at Khalil Herbert and how he's playing for Virginia Tech. I mean, he was a guy that really, I mean, you saw flashes of how great of a running back he could be at Kansas, and then he goes to a place like Virginia Tech, and I don't
program.
His stats are stupid this year. Like, I don't even know what they are off the top of my head, but he's averaging like 7 yards a carry. He's rushed for like 7 touchdowns. I mean, like, he's had so many rushing yards, and it just is maddening. Like, you had this talent in Lawrence. He left, and now he's putting up these big numbers, and I've got no doubt in my mind that Pooka will do the same thing. To your point, Kansas is they're what, 0-5, 0-4, 0-5, whatever.
Cares?
It doesn't matter.
They're not winning a game this year. The record doesn't matter. They're not going to win. It's not happening. If
Kansas was 4-0 or 5-0, or hell, if they were even 2-2, I don't think you see this decision from Pooka Williams this year. There's not a chance. I mean, I agree with you. There are other things going on. It's a nice way of saying, I'm sorry, Jayhawks fans, but peace out. I'm going somewhere else. And who can blame him? Like, I don't blame him at all. Like, go get yourself a program where they're actually going to showcase you and give you the best opportunity to play on Sunday. He's going to play on Sunday. He's going to make it to the league, but give yourself an opportunity to be drafted higher by going to a different program where they can actually showcase you the proper way.
Boise State found a way to make Montel Cozart look like a good player. Are you kidding me? This is a guy that's from this area, and he just comes down here. He stinks for us. I never thought he was going to be a good quarterback after I watched Bishop Carroll totally wreck his world in the 2012 5A state championship game. I think this is supposed to be our quarterback. Boise State found a way to make it work. This is not a Les Miles or David Beatty problem. This is a University of Kansas problem that our football team sucks every stinking year. They're terrible. What do we even are we doing a preview now? Is that what's next? Where's the phone? Are we doing the preview next to the Sunflower Showdown?
I'm just going to tell you. Okay.
KU loses by 1,000 points to Kansas State. It's over. It's over for KU football.
Well, that answers my question, because as of right now, the Wildcats are a 20-point favorite in the Sunflower Showdown.
Your life on this.
Yeah,
KU
that's not nearly enough.
20 points. 20 points. Yeah. I would bet everything. 30 points. Kansas State fans, this is going to be your Blake Cripps stimulus, okay? You know, you don't know if you're getting any more Trump bucks. You don't know if you're going to get another stimulus. Go bet your life savings that KU loses by 21 or more points to Kansas State. There is no chance. And I don't say this because I want this to be true. Just like we were talking about the Wichita State thing. I love KU football in a way that's not healthy, okay? But this is a fact. KU stinks. Kansas State has a real coach and a real program. There's no chance in the world, unless Kansas State has half their team quarantined and has to run the Manhattan Indians out there, that KU is keeping this game within 20 points. There's no chance. I'm sorry.
So I have to say, I read this article about the Sunflower Showdown, and a defensive end for the Wildcats, Wyatt Hubert, was quoted and I don't know exactly the wording he used, but basically saying that KU football gets really amped up for the Sunflower Showdown because it's like their Super Bowl. It's like KU football
it is
Super Bowl. And my response to that, and I tweeted this, is that, because the best Super Bowls are the ones that finish with a final score of 63-7. Those are always the most fun Super Bowls to watch. While KU football may get amped up for it like a Super Bowl, it certainly will not be an outcome like the Super Bowl at all, where it's a classic nail biter. The Wildcats will blow out the Jayhawks. I put money on that to happen. I absolutely, and I'm a KU fan.
Are you laying some scratch?
I already
down
did.
On this?
I already did. I put the bet down on Monday when the line opened at 19.5.
What odds did you get on that? Is it
because
just money line?
it was just money line.
Okay, I got you.
Well, no, I guess I did put money on them covering the spread. I take that back. So I think that K-State was minus 110 on that bet. And so, I mean, I wouldn't double my money. I would come close to doubling my money in that regard. But I'm like, it doesn't matter. That's free money. That is free money that I'm putting on there right then. And so I did that. And so it is what it is. But yeah, obviously K-State will kill KU. They didn't have. Here's the thing, Blake.
11 games in a row they've won in the series. By the way, 11.
Well, let's put this into perspective. KU didn't have a chance with Pooka Williams.
No.
They absolutely will not have a chance without him. There's no chance. We still don't know who the quarterback is going to be. No. It looks like maybe Miles Kendrick, but Thomas McGetty is also available. But yet Jalen Daniels is also. Who knows? I don't know. Who knows?
I will say, going back, we didn't really talk about the West Virginia game, which I listened entirely on the radio. A huge shout out to my dear friend Jimmy Chavez, who covered for Brian. Yeah. First of all, so happy that Brian is okay and that he's not. He's totally asymptomatic, didn't have it, but because of the protocol and Hawk Talk, was not allowed to travel with the team, just like Les Miles was held home. So Brian's been a huge supporter of mine in my career too. So I'm super happy that Brian is healthy as well. But people don't realize how hard it is to get Division I jobs and to get a shot at doing Division I football. And for Jimmy Chavez to get that opportunity, to get that tape on his resume, there's so many things that could have happened in that game at the very end. How appropriate is it that Pooka's last touch as a Jayhawk is a touchdown? That could have been a touchback. That could have been kicked out of bounds.
Sure.
And the fact that Jimmy Chavez got to call a touchdown and he nailed the call, God, I lost my mind when I heard him calling the game.
And you know what? To be completely fair, we've spent an awful lot of time absolutely bashing the KU football program for good reason.
Yeah,
it wasn't all negative against West Virginia. The
defense played well. I thought the defense
was okay.
They hung in. You have to remember, they gave up a lot of points, okay? I thought the defense played well, and here's why. If the offense does nothing, you cannot put these guys out there for 100 snaps with no rest. You don't get any first downs. How many times do they have to go out and make a stop? They created turnovers. They got punts. You can't, just like we talk about with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs about how they can't be all on Patrick. The offense did nothing. The offense did zero. They had the 10 first quarter points, which, yay, that's great. Pat yourself on the back. Woohoo. And after that, they didn't score the rest of the game.
And I'm going to tell you right now.
Played well enough to win.
I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not going to belabor this point because we need to move on, but Miles Kendrick is not a Division I quarterback. He's just not.
I don't think Kansas has any Division I quarterback, sadly, but there were positives. Let me give credit to the defense. They played very well. The defense gave Kansas a chance to win that football game, and they played their guts out.
Yep.
I give, and I've been very, like you said, I have crushed KU football on this. I do want to be very clear. If you're going to the game, and this is my opinion, not yours, you can hot take horn me if you want. Don't ever boo the student athletes. I don't care if there's 0 in a trillion. Yeah, do not boo KU football players. The defense, they came with a lot. It would be easy for them to just throw in the towel and say, to hell with this season. We're bad. The defensive players showed up and they played their guts out against West Virginia, which had been, by the way, a pretty good offense in several games this year. Held them down. You cannot expect them to do everything when the offense provides nothing in the last, outside of the first 10 minutes of the football game. So
I say this all jokingly, but maybe Les Miles should stay home more often because they actually looked better without him there. I say that joking, and obviously it's a good thing that he's healthy. And
can they translate some things to Kansas State? I don't know. Kansas State has had a couple of weeks.
Don't hold your breath.
I'm not going to. Kansas State has had a couple of weeks to prepare. we've both agreed that Chris Kleiman is doing a better job coaching his team in Manhattan than Les Miles is in KU. In Lawrence, like I said,
bottom line is that the line could be 40, and I would still take K-State to cover the spread.
I've got Kansas State plus 38 in this one. Plus 38, which, by the way, what was my line in the West Virginia game? I think I actually got pretty close. Didn't I say something like 28 or 21? I mean,
I don't know. That sounds like
pretty close.
That sounds
go
like
back and review the tape on that.
That sounds like revisionist history to me, but it is what it is. Let's stay very briefly on KU, but we're going to switch to the hardwood instead of the gridiron. The big announcement came. Pooka Williams was not the only athlete at KU to leave his respective program in the last week. Silvio De Sousa is leaving the Kansas basketball program, so he will not be a part of the Jayhawk squad. It basically ties a bow on a very strange career from someone with the University of Kansas when you had all the issues with him originally getting cleared to play, then the improper benefits allegations that caused him to set out for a period of time, and then last season with the fight at Allen Fieldhouse against the Wildcats where he was suspended for, I believe, 12 games or so, and now he will not be playing for the program this season, saying that he needs to deal with some personal issues. How big of a loss is this for the basketball program at KU?
Oh, I don't think it's any loss whatsoever. KU, Bill Self brings in great players every single year. Going back to kind of it's a similar vein of conversation that we had about Wichita State earlier. It's odd to me, and listen, I love Bill Self. My alma mater is Kansas. Bill Self has been the coach of the Jayhawks since I started going to school there. And I've been looking forward my whole life to going and seeing Roy. And, Roy ripped my heart out and, let it bleed all the way on the plane to Chapel Hill in North Carolina. I love Bill Self. Bill Self kind of recruits some knuckleheads.
Yeah.
You think back to Silvio De Sousa, J.R. Giddens, Micah Downs, CJ Giles, Brady Morningstar, Brandon Green. Where's the coverage on this? Like, how many players we have people transfer out every single year at Kansas? Why isn't that talked about? Is this a problem? I don't know. Bill Self wins conference championships. I guess I use the scale more to think about the Frank Masons of the world, the Devon Dotsons of the world that he has coached, who are such great guys. The Micah Lightfoots, the people like that.
Mitch
Lightfoot. Mitch Lightfoot. Those guys that he has brought in and coached, Sharon Collins. And I'm not saying all of them have been perfect.
Harry Ellis.
Not all of them have been perfect after KU, but so many of those guys have been so awesome on campus. Perry Ellis, obviously, right here in Wichita, has been such a great guy on and off the floor. I guess I put more into the guys like Frank Mason and Perry Ellis than I do the absolute idiots that he has also recruited. No. So did we miss? Correct me if I'm wrong. All those guys that I listed that were on the knucklehead scale, pretty highly rated, right?
Sure.
Pretty highly recruited, highly touted, skilled players. Did we miss any of those guys? I didn't. So I'm not going to miss Silvio De Sousa. Thank you for your service. I'm glad you didn't hit that Kansas State player in the head with a steel chair. It would have been great if we had good old JR on the call there from the WWF, but no, we're not.
My God, he's going to hit him with a chair.
My God, what an impact.
Yeah,
no,
so
we're not going to miss Silvio De Sousa.
This absolutely puts more of a priority on guys like David McCormick and Mitch Lightfoot in the front court.
They wanted to play anyway.
Jayhawks. Right. They were going to be the main guys anyway. I think ensures that KU will continue to play the kind of basketball that they've been known for the last few seasons or so, and that's 4 guards and 1 big man. I think that's probably what you're going to be looking at for sure. And then, you've got a guy in, I believe you say his name, I think it's pronounced Jethro. but it's with a G. I think it's Jethro Muscadine, who is an incoming freshman for the Jayhawks. So there were some questions about would he redshirt this year, but now there's a chance that he could play a pretty important reserve role with Silvio De Sousa gone. So all of that to be said that Silvio will not be returning to the Jayhawks program. So I wonder if he and Pooka hopped on the same plane out of Lawrence. I'm not sure if that's the case or not.
Pretty different circumstances. It certainly does sound like in this case that there were things that Silvio needed to, leaving KU football is totally different than leaving Kansas basketball, 2020 Big 12 champions, and, on the cusp of what I believe would have been a national title opportunity that was taken away last year. KU ain't even close. National title, Big 12 title. They're not even going to win. They're not even going to win a game this year. So leaving that program way different than Silvio De Sousa leaving a blue blood program.
Yeah, but KU football, just like every other college football team, is eligible for a bowl game this year.
Thank God for that. Yeah, we'll be playing in the at this point, honestly, they wouldn't want KU football at the Shrine Bowl coming up next fall. They wouldn't. No, why would you want KU at the Shrine? Nobody wants to watch this team play. I'm sorry. Defense, keep it up. I love what I saw last week out of the defense. Let's see. That's the only way. If the defense does not show up against Kansas State, this is going to be a massacre. They have got to limit the touches for the Kansas State offense if they want to have any chance in that game.
K-State by at least 40 is still my prediction. You say
35.
38. You say 35.
Did I say 38? I'll keep it 38. Yeah, Kansas State plus 38. I'm
going K-State like plus 42 is my prediction in the Sunflower Showdown. We'll of course talk about it more next week on the program. Before we get out of here, let's very quickly get into our Wichita Whiparound. Again, it's another prep football update. We like to kind of wait till the end of the show to kind of break down some of the things that we saw around the Wichita Metro in prep football. Of course, week number 7 wrapped up just a few days ago in the City League. Blake, I thought this was a really interesting game. We talked all about how big of a game Northwest and East High was, and the final score was one that surprised me. It was looked like a defensive battle for most of the game as Northwest got the win against East by a final score of 17-2. An interesting score there for Northwest, but they get the victory.
Yeah, I did not think that East would hold Wichita Northwest down like that. Northwest clinches another City League championship. All the credit in the world to Steve Martin. They've got Wichita South next week, which is in that second tier. They're in the top 5 in the latest rankings from Varsity Kansas. Obviously, again, if people are not aware, Bishop Carroll and Capon did not play a City League schedule, were not eligible. In fact, Battle for Tyler Road did not even happen between Carroll and Northwest, which would have been a absolutely monster game. But yeah, Wichita East, I mean, to me, when you hold Wichita Northwest to 17 points, now obviously the Northwest defense dominated the Aces. East is for real. That's a real program now. Let's see what happens with them in 2021 when everybody in the City League is back together. Because let's be honest, you dodge Bishop Carroll and you dodge Cape and Mount Carmel, and they're looking much improved under Weston Schartz. That's going to help your morale when you're beating up on the other public City League schools. But I'm impressed. I don't come away thinking that much differently about Northwest. I'm super impressed with Wichita East and the way they played the Grizzlies.
Southeast shut out North by a score of 55-0 on Friday. Not a surprise there for sure with that game. Heights beat South by a score of 51-0. Again, probably not a total surprise there for that game. What you want to talk about a surprise and a shocker? Mays beat Derby by a score of 36-35, handing Derby their second loss of the season. Seems like a shocker. Are you surprised by that, Blake?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Derby had won 29 straight games in the AVCTL, which dated back like to 2014, I think. Derby does not lose City League games. Like, since Coach Clark has been there, they have been absolutely dominant. And, Scott Adams gets the game-winning interception with less than a minute to go, with, I think, 57 seconds left. Phenomenal job for Mays. Mays has had seasons and stretches where they have been absolutely elite. And also consider the fact that they were down by 9 entering the fourth quarter. They were trailing 35-26 and scored 10 straight points, shut out Derby, put together a 10-play drive over 5 minutes off the clock. Josh Sanders with the go-ahead touchdown on a 1-yard run to take the lead in that game. You don't hold Derby scoreless in the game. All the credit in the world to the Mays Eagles to beat Derby like that. I cannot remember the last time that Derby had 2 regular season losses. I mean, it had to have been years since Derby's had 2 regular season losses.
You know, I don't think this is hyperbole to say that maybe the biggest matchup in this region next week for the entire year is Mays and Hutchinson, because they're both the front runners for the Division I ABCTL title, and that game is happening this coming weekend for a chance at that title.
Which,
that's a huge game.
Who would have thought about that? I mean, Hutchinson at 6-1. Hutchinson, by the way, for people who are wondering, does not play Derby this year. In fact, I'm not for sure. Was that one of the games that maybe got canceled? I don't remember. Looking at the weeks, I don't think that that's the case. But, I mean, Hutchinson under Mike Vernon, what a turnaround. You know, Hutchinson, of course, under Coach Dreiling, had been an absolute monster for a number of years. Ryan Cornelison came in and had 1 9-win season, fairly decent, but never really got the Salthawks to where they were really a state contender year in and year out. I remember there, you know, before I started doing the games, 5A battles with Bishop Carroll each and every year, moved up to 6A, successful at each class. They're back down to 5A this year. Hutchinson is for real. They have played in tough games, several one-possession wins, Valley Center, Garden City, Mays South, and Newton earlier in the year. This is a big measuring stick game because I think Mays has played a better schedule than Hutchinson has, but this is a measuring stick game for Mike Vernon and the Salthawks to see where they stack up against the Mays Eagles, going for a perfect season up there in the suburbs of Wichita. Great story here for Sedgwick County and obviously South Central Kansas. I know Hutchinson isn't quite in our demographic, but you know, close enough. Huge local matchup coming up next week for sure.
And as you said, Derby falls to 3-2 on the season. They play Mays South this coming weekend. I am glad, Blake, that you are here this week and not Weston, because I would have had to hear from him. His alma mater, the Andale Indians, defeated my alma mater, the Clearwater Indians.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. The Battle of the Tribes.
Yep, with a 40-21 victory over Clearwater in Class 3A. So Andale stayed perfect. Clearwater, you know, had started the season off really well. They fell to Collegiate last week, and then, of course, they fell to Andale just a few days ago. But this is a really competitive Clearwater team, and probably the most competitive that we've seen from the Indians of Clearwater in a long time. But obviously, Andale is a juggernaut, and so, of course, they continue to look like the top-ranked team in Class 3A, the Andale Indians do. A couple of other highlights from last week. It was the battle in Andover. Andover Central took down Andover High School by a score of 7-0. It was a first quarter touchdown by Andover Central, and that was the only score for the rest of the game, as the Jaguars beat the Trojans by a score of 7-0. So that happened last weekend as well. As we look ahead to this coming weekend in prep football, Heights is on the road taking on Southeast in the City League. West travels to take on the Blue Aces. East, as they look to bounce back from that loss against Northwest from a few days ago. Newton travels to Campus. Mays South, as I mentioned, travels to Derby. And then, of course, you've got a few other matchups that we get to. South on the road taking on Northwest in the City League as well. Any other big matchups that you want to mention? I know we talked about the Mays and Hutchinson matchup. That's a big one. Anything else stand out to you?
Well, I did want to point out going back to Clearwater, you know, they're not that far removed from Clearwater being, you know, 1-8 back in 2017, the last year for Dirk Ankerholz, and Jeremy Schufler has come in. I believe that's his name. It's been a while. I interviewed him because I called the Wellington games for like a season and a half on a whim. I went down there, and it was a lot of fun to cover the Wellington games. Shout out to you, Jamie, if you're watching the show. But Clearwater has played a tough schedule this year.
Sure.
They've got, Mulvane is typically a good team. Wichita Collegiate, by the way, can we give some love to my boy, Troy Black, my color analyst for Wichita Force football back in the day? How was that? I'll have to bust out one of those polos and my championship rings. My color analyst for the indoor professional Wichita football, they're 7-0, the Spartans are this year. Yeah. They blew out Halstead. Collegiate and Andale, to me, is the huge game. That's coming up this week, Wichita Collegiate versus Andale. But Collegiate blew out Mulvane by 56, blew out Wellington by 53, and then impressive win over Clearwater. Troy Black has tried to build this program up. Collegiate has been kind of in the doghouse for a while. This is a real team, and I got to watch them play Wellington firsthand before we were ripped off the air. Allied Media Partners, RIP AMP. 28-7 was that loss last year. That was a really talented Wichita Collegiate team at Class 3A. Troy Black has them going in the right direction. They finished last year slowly after starting 4-0. They're finishing strong this year, and Coach Black has got them moving in the right direction. That's going to be a heck of a battle between the Spartans and the Indians coming up this week.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And hats off to the Spartans. We haven't really mentioned a lot about Collegiate on this program.
No, we should. We really should.
Because they're an incredibly strong football program.
By the way, that is for the AVCTL Division 4 championship. Andale 4-0, Collegiate 4-0. So your Indians are going to finish third unless they lose their last game. Rose Hill's also 2-3. I don't know if they've played. We don't do that much research on this show, but that's going to be a hell of a game. Collegiate and Andale, winner has a perfect season and a league championship, and the loser will have a little extra motivation going into, I think they're both 3A for the 3A playoffs.
Obviously, the stakes are getting high and continuing to go higher week in and week out in the prep football scene. Of course, we'll have more information next week, and we'll recap those games on the next episode of Keeper of the Games. And that's going to bring us to the end of this program. Blake, I have to tell you that while you are not Jeff Goodman, you are a serviceable co-host. No, I'm kidding. You were great. Appreciate you being here again.
Like I said, it's always great to be the third man on a two-man show.
You're more than a third man, Blake. You definitely.
Congrats, Weston. I know he'll be back in a couple weeks, but he'll have to get his napping schedule down. Or maybe he can bring the baby on. Maybe when he comes back, he'll bring the baby on camera. You get three-man it that way.
Well, yeah, just by default, the baby will be the cutest part of the show. I mean, more so than me or him or you.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I think one time I had my dog on the show, and that was like she was pretty
obsessed
cute,
with your dog. I mean,
I like
even going back when
I like my dog. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, you do like your dog. You're right. Yeah. That's an inside joke that only Will get. But yeah, you. I remember. Even when we were working together, it was all about your dog. I was like, yeah, it's a dog. Great, awesome.
I don't have kids. What can I say? My dogs are my kids. But that's a different story for a different time. Want to remind you to hit subscribe. That way, anytime we have a brand new episode, you'll get a notification. Again, you can listen on all major platforms, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all of them out there to listen to these episodes. You can watch full episodes on YouTube and Facebook by searching for Keeper of the Games. And you can go to our new website, cogsports.com, KOGsports.com. We would really appreciate you going there and checking out the new website. And then, of course, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CogPod, at KOGPod. Blake, hit them with your Twitter handle.
At BE Cripps, BECRIPPS on Twitter.
You can follow me anytime at Tweets from Tommy. We'll be back next week with a new episode of Keeper of the Games. For Blake Cripps, I'm Tommy Castor. Take care.
You've been listening to Keeper of the Games with Tommy Castor and Weston Mills. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and listen on all major podcast platforms like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Find the podcast and videos on Facebook and YouTube at Keeper of the Games, and follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at CogPod. That's KOG Pod.